So section 6.2 is called Properties of Parallelograms, and the word parallelogram has the word what in it?
Parallel.
Parallel. So basically a parallel is going to have, or a parallelogram is going to have two pairs of parallel sides. So parallelogram is going to look something like this, where the top and the bottom are parallel. So I'm going to put those little caret thingies on it. And the left and the right are parallel. So I'm going to put a single caret on each side. Okay. Parallelograms have 4 theorems that we're going to talk about. Oops, there's no E right there. That does not look right. Let's try that again. Theorems. T-H-E-O-R-E-M-S. There we go. All right, let's get our spelling down today. Theorems. All right, and the theorems in this book are numbered. And so they're numbered by chapter. So this is chapter 6, section 2, first theorem. All right, and they're kind of wordy, so I shortened them down for you, like abbreviated them, okay? And the first one basically says that on a parallelogram, the opposite sides are parallel. Are congruent. Okay. We already established that they're parallel. This first theorem says that the opposite sides are also congruent. So if we were to label this particular parallelogram right here, let's call it A, B, C, D, just to keep it easy. We'll say that AB is congruent to DC and BC is congruent to AD. Bless you. And that's your first theorem. Not only are they parallel, they're also congruent. So the next theorem, Theorem chapter 6, section 2, second theorem, says that opposite angles are congruent. Okay. So how many pairs of opposite angles are you going to have? 2 pairs, right? So let's start with A. It's going to be congruent to which one? Which one's opposite it? C. So you're going to say angle A is congruent to angle C. Then put a comma. Then the other 2 that are left are B and D. All right, our third theorem. So chapter 6, section 2, third theorem. It's going to say that consecutive, and we're just going to abbreviate it C-O-N-S. Consecutive just means one right after the other. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, so if they're opposite each other, they're congruent. But if they're consecutive, one right after the other, then they're going to be supplementary. Who remembers supplementary from last semester? How many degrees is supplementary? What? That's complementary.
180.
180. So that means that they're going to add up to 180. Consecutive, this fancy word, is one after another. So A and B. We'll say angle A plus angle B, whoops, squeeze that little angle symbol in there, is equal to 180 degrees. And then angle B plus angle C is 180 degrees. Bless you. And angle C plus angle D is 180 degrees. And one more, angle D plus angle A equals 180 degrees. Usually on a problem, you're not going to need all 4 of them. You're going to need to find 2 consecutive angles, and then you'll just need to know that they add up to 180. But it could be any 2 of the consecutive ones, okay? All right. The next theorem Theorem chapter 6, section 2, theorem 4. This one says that the diagonals are going to bisect each other. What does this word bisect mean? Yeah, I'm going to shrink it. Give it just a second. There it goes. What does bisect mean? Cuts it in half, right? So if I were to dash in a diagonal from A to C, kind of like we did yesterday, dash in a diagonal here, dash in a diagonal here, then we get this this fifth point right here in the middle. We'll call it E, just because we're going alphabetically. A, B, C, D, E. So this diagonal bisects this one, creating this piece and this piece. And then that diagonal cuts this one, creating this piece and this piece. So here's what it looks like. BE becomes congruent to DE, and AE becomes congruent to CE. All right. All these theorems are pretty easy, like they're all kind of obvious. There's just 4 of them, okay? So you kind of have to look at them and see which one you're going to use for each of the questions. So for example, number 1. We're going to draw a parallelogram. We'll call this one C, D, E, F. And I'm going to give you some information, and I'm going to move it up. So hopefully you are. Okay. Side DE is going to be 74 millimeters. And I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Angle C over here is 42 degrees. And if I tell you this diagonal, D to F, and this diagonal, we'll put G right here in the middle. This piece from D to G is 31 millimeters. Okay, so I've got 3 things labeled. I've got side DE is 74 millimeters. I've got angle C is 42 degrees. And this little part of the diagonal is 31 millimeters. So we're going to have 3 questions, 1 for each of them. All right, so we'll call it part A, part B, and part C. So part A, first part, we want to find the length of CF. So first thing you want to do is find where CF is at. So you come over to your parallelogram. Thank you. Parallelogram. You come over to your parallelogram. Here's C, here's F. So it's this side right here, which is opposite this side right here. So if you look back up at the 4 theorems, it's the first one, the second one, the third one, or the fourth one? The first one, right, which says the opposite sides are congruent. So if this one's 74 millimeters, what's this one going to be? 74 millimeters. Okay? Part B. Part B, we want to find the measure of angle EFC. So you come over to your parallelogram and you find your E, you find your F, you find your C. So it's talking about this angle right in here. I'm going to squeeze a little like question mark there, but you can put an X or you could put a little arc, something to help you see which one we're talking about. Okay? So if it's an angle, it's either going to be theorem 2 or theorem 3. Are they opposite, the one that we know right here, or are they consecutive? They're consecutive. They're one right after another. So should they be congruent or should they be supplementary? Supplementary, which means we start with 180, we subtract the 42 that we know, and I think I got 138. Okay? Or you could write an equation. You could say x plus 42 equals 180. You end up getting the same answer. Okay? Part C is in cat. This one we want to find the length of DF. So you come over to your parallelogram, you go, here's D, here's F. So we want the length of the whole thing, while I only gave you this little piece right here. So what should I do with it? Or double it. Add it twice or double it, it's the same thing, right? So I'm going to go 2 times the 31. It should be 62 millimeters. All right. You guys did a great job on those. Let's try one with a little bit of algebra in it. All right, so example number 2. All right, so here's our next parallelogram. Anybody still copying example 1 down? Okay, good, I'm going to move this up then. And let me give you some information. Angle W up here is 18B minus 11. I'm going to make that a capital B so it doesn't look like a 6. Of course, now it looks like an 8.
What does that say?
Let me make it an X. There we go. 18X minus 11. That makes life easier. And angle Z is going to be 9X plus 2. Up top, side WX is 6A plus 10. And down at the bottom, side ZY is 8A minus 4. All right? So we're going to do 2 parts, right? Because we have the 2 sides labeled and we have the 2 angles labeled. All right? So let's do the sides first. So part A. We're going to find the length of YZ. Okay? If you go to YZ, there isn't just a number there. Like, it doesn't say 42 inches. Okay? Instead, there's that algebraic expression, right? So you're going to set it equal to the top side. So 8A minus 4 is equal to 6A plus 10 because they're congruent. And then you just solve it algebraically. Subtract 6A from both sides. In the same step, you can add 4 to both sides. These are opposites. These are opposites. And you're left with 8A minus 6A, which is 2A. And then on the right, you're left with the 10 and the 4, which is 14. So when you divide both sides by 2, you should get 7. Okay? Feels like you're done, but you're not. What do you have to do with that 7? Plug it back in. So YZ is going to be equal to 8 times 7 minus 4. I got 52. Okay? Now let's try the angles. So this is part B. This one, we want to find the measure of angle Z. So Z is this one right here, which is labeled 9x plus 2. So you have to determine if the other angle that's labeled is opposite or consecutive. If it's opposite, you set them equal to each other. If it's consecutive, you do what? Add them up to 180. So we're going to say 9x plus 2 plus 18x minus 11 equals 180. And then you just combine like terms on the left. So 9x and 18x, I got 27x. And 2 minus 11 is minus 9. Next step, you want to do inverse operations. So add 9 to both sides. So you have 27x equals 189.